I'm Aaron Sagers, and this is Talking Strange. Hey there, spooky nerds, and welcome to Talking Strange, the paranormal pop culture show. I am your host, journalist, author, and researcher of weird things, Aaron Sagers. Also from 28 Days Haunted on Netflix and Paranormal Caught on Camera on Travel Channel and the Max streaming service. And by the way, we are currently airing our 7th season of Caught on Camera, so go ahead and check that out. Anyhow, my guest today is Karen Gillan, and not only is she an actor we of course know from Doctor Who, Guardians of the Galaxy, Jumanji, Gunpowder Milkshake, as well as dramas The Party's Just Beginning, All Creatures Here Below. She has been a person that I've kind of known for a long time, going back to the very beginning of Doctor Who when I started interviewing her. I think she's an incredibly gifted performer and writer and director. And I'm just always excited to see the new thing that she does, because she can easily bounce across genre and is always delivering really, really interesting performances. And her newest film is Late Bloomers. Now, this opens in theaters June 7th, 2024. It's directed by Lisa Steen with a script by writer Anna Greenfield. And in the film, Gillan plays Louise, who is a 28-year-old Brooklynite adrift in life who finds herself suddenly single and grappling with her identity as a musician. While she struggles with her underlying depression, a reckless drunken stumble lands her with a broken hip and leads to a stint in physical therapy with patients twice her age. And she crosses paths with Antonina, played by Margaret Sophie Stein, a cantankerous elderly Polish woman who speaks no English. Reluctantly, Louise takes on the role of Antonina's caregiver, and it's a situation neither of them welcomes. As they navigate their begrudging relationship, they confront the realities of aging, forcing Louise to consider her own journey into adulthood. So, let's move on from there. Let's hear from Karen Gillan, where we talk about the film Late Bloomers, as well as the 10th anniversary of her film Oculus, which was directed by Mike Flanagan, and her own sort of spooky stories. Karen, thanks again for joining me. I'm always excited to see what you are up to, because you're always doing some incredible projects. But with Late Bloomers, you're in, I think, every scene in this film.
I think you might be right. Yes, I think
so. And there's no action hero clothes, no prosthetics or makeup to create the mask, no sci-fi monsters. This is all you. How is this project compared to the other films that you've worked on? I know you've obviously done a lot of drama with The Party's Just Beginning and All Creatures Here Below, but how does this one compare?
I mean, it was certainly different. I'm not running around a spaceship or away from any monsters, which is what I'm accustomed to now. However, I would say that my approach is always the same, no matter what the genre is. I sort of ignore genres, actually, is what I'm realizing. My approach is always the same of like, how do I make this as truthful as possible, as real, as believable? I'm not really like, oh, I'm doing like a real life comedy now, let me like adjust. It's more the same approach no matter what, if that makes sense.
Sure. And this character Louise, who 28 years old, engages in some perhaps unhealthy behavior leading to her broken hip, and coming into this story with Margaret Sophie Stein's character. Would you say that Louise, how much of Louise is you? How much of you is Louise? I mean, this is a toned down, well, how much? Yes. Where is it crossover?
So curious to know where you were going with toned down, because how are you going to say toned down version of me?
Well,
You might be right.
she's a believable character, even though she's a mess. And there's a little bit of the awkwardness of Karen that I say that as a compliment that I see in there.
Right.
But so
You're
where
bad.
do the two meet?
I think That's exactly it. Like, I read the script and I was like, oh, this is a character that I think I can sort of bring my own personality into, and all my awkwardness and strange mannerisms. I don't know if they're strange or not, but all the things that I would normally suppress if I'm playing some sort of superhero because that doesn't look cool. And I was like, I can let rip. I can let all of these personality traits sort of explode out onto the screen. And so she is fairly close to me. I haven't actually dealt with the things that she's dealing with in the film, but I was definitely able to empathize with that and react in the way that I would react in those situations. So yeah, probably a version of me is going on in there.
With the character of Antonina, again, I know her American stage name is Margaret Sophie Stein. She plays a woman who doesn't speak English. Were there, how did you approach it, and how did the director kind of guide you on this? Did you discuss things with her in English and then we act out the scenes, or did you just kind of go in without truly knowing what her lines were?
I believe I knew everything that she was saying, if I'm remembering correctly. She speaks great English in real life, and we had quite a long rehearsal process beforehand so we could get to know each other, read through the scenes, get really comfortable with each other. And so she's also just the most extraordinary actress that you kind of understand what she's saying when you don't know what the words mean, because she's just conveying the emotion, and so much of communication is nonverbal actually. So weirdly, I didn't find that much of a barrier in terms of understanding her and where she's coming from. I wouldn't have known what od piepsze means. I now know that that means something that I probably can't say right now.
It's really good to work it into everyday conversation. I was trying to figure out the pronunciation precisely after watching the film because I do like that. And then she has this, as a character and as the performer, she has this strength and beauty, and then as a character conveys this kind of cantankerous nature, and her eyes are very expressive. Like you said, there's a lot of nonverbal communication taking place there. Did you view her character, Antonina, and Louise as different sides of the coin, separated by a couple decades?
I think that they have their similarities and their differences, which is what makes the relationship interesting. And they kind of butt heads a little bit. But ultimately, I think what sort of binds them together is that they're both in a situation where they've yet to come of age in some sort of way. And so I think through meeting each other, they're able to kind of finally do that.
She, your character Louise has this, it seems to have a lot of anxiety, and even though I'm no longer in my 20s, far from it, I can kind of relate to that fear. That's almost like a crippling fear of doing nothing is almost sometimes is preferable than doing something, as opposed to doing something and failing at it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, or even like not opening that piece of mail because you fear there might be bad news inside that envelope. Is that something that you tapped into quite easily, that fear of failure, so do nothing?
I definitely empathize with the fear of failure. That's something that I deal with on a daily basis. I don't know why, but my reaction to that is that then I have to do the thing. So I don't personally relate to doing nothing, but I can absolutely see the temptation of that. Like, it would be so much more comfortable to not be terrified all the time. Um, but I think I know that if I don't stay on top of that, that it's just going to overtake my whole life. And so I have to do maintenance and not let that happen.
Hmm. There's this creative team of, you, director Lisa Steen, writer Anna Greenfield. Did Lisa and Anna, working with them, did it allow for a little bit more trust in order to kind of take certain creative swings with your performance? Did you feel like you were in pretty good hands and have that built-in trust because of, you're a woman working with these other women creatives, and you've also written and directed?
Oh yeah, definitely. There was a level of trust there that I felt like I was in really safe hands to take some swings that may or may not have worked. Talk about fear of failure. I think when you're taking swings in a performance, I mean, you can just, I mean, I fail on it on a daily basis and hope that it doesn't make it into the edit. I don't think a lot of them did in this film, thankfully. But it's nerve-wracking to when you're working with someone for the first time to take those swings because you don't know what their taste is and whether it will end up in the edit or not. But in just talking to Lisa, the director, she's one of the most emotionally intelligent people I've met. She understood everything so deeply and understood where I was coming from every step of the way and guided me in a way to do it better. And she was so encouraging of these sort of taking swings, doing weird little things that, there's a scene in the film where I like kiss a guy and I make a weird noise before kissing him that's like, ugh! That's something I did in real life. And I told them that story and they were like, we're putting that in the film. So she was really sort of like giving me positive reinforcement in terms of bringing in my own little personality traits. And so I definitely felt like I could trust her.
Yeah, and I heard that was a noise that you made with your then future husband, I believe, the kissing noise. And it almost this is the problem with having friends that are creators. It's almost like you don't want to tell any stories because it might end up in a script.
It happens to me all the time. I think I told that story at the wedding during my vows, and then I found myself doing it in the movie like 2 months later. But hey, it worked. So maybe ladies make that noise. And, you'll bag him.
So were the adult diapers also pulled from your personal life?
No, they weren't. Not yet, anyway.
How were they? They looked oddly comfortable.
I love her in that diaper. I think when I was first reading the script and I saw that she puts a diaper, I'm turning American, nappy, when she puts a nappy on, I was like, that's when I knew I was going to do this role. I needed to wear a nappy, wear it with pride. And it was just so much fun wearing those nappies together and just looking silly.
Yeah. And I would say, I mean, this is dramatic and comedic, but there is something something that I personally don't even want to think about, the fact that I have to be an adult now as I watch my parents get older. And thankfully they are still healthy and everything, but there's that gripping terror almost of I still feel like a kid. I don't want to have to be concerned about being the parent to aging parents. Is that something that you guys discussed during the making of this, that she's having to grow up also to essentially take on parenting roles to another woman and address her own family's trauma?
Yeah, I'm not sure how many discussions we had about that, but that was so apparent in reading the script and a huge part of what sculpted my performance. I think her biggest predicament is that she kind of finds herself needing to take care of someone, doesn't do so well at that with her own mother. And understandably so, like, I'm not judging the character for not showing up in the way that she should have. I think that everybody copes in their own way. And it's a real mixture of emotions to sacrifice your own life to take care of somebody else, which is ultimately, I think that's the way to be happy in life, to be honest. But for a girl in her 20s whose career hasn't even started yet, like, I completely understand why she was feeling reluctant to do that and scared to face the reality and the truth and was in a bit of denial. And then she gets a second chance to kind of rectify that with Antonina, the character. And I think she does.
Yeah. So I live about maybe a 7-minute walk from where you guys filmed. I'm seeing a lot of Greenpoint there. And I'm in East Williamsburg. So I always I love Atlanta. I love Vancouver. I love Toronto. But I do love when New York City is actually filmed in New York City. There's nothing quite like it. So, speak about the joy of filming in New York and why it was so important, honestly, to film in New York.
Oh, New York City is my favorite city on the planet, closely followed by Inverness, Scotland. But New York, there's just something so special and magical about that place. It's so full of life. It's got so many different generations of life in it. Like, I walk around LA and I'm like, why am I only seeing people that are 23 years old? I'm sick of it. But I love New York. You'll see people of all ages doing all kinds of different activities, and that's inspiring and nice to see. And also, you know, this character is dealing with a lot. She has a broken hip, she's on crutches, and this is all in New York City, trying to ride the subway in the excruciating heat. I mean, she's in a constant state of discomfort, and I think New York can really provide that in a way that I love, but it can be also an uncomfortable city.
Yeah, it's not easy to get around at times, especially yeah, if you're injured in that way on crutches. Since you did reference Inverness, I must ask the obviously it's somewhat well known for a certain creature and a certain loch, but
Yes.
any Scottish lore or legends that I love this stuff. I love spooky stuff. I love legends. I love folklore. And I feel like we need to see more from a global perspective. Any good stories from Inverness that you think you would like to inform the world about? Kelpies,
Oh,
mermaids, things like that.
oh. Well, the big one is the Loch Ness Monster, as we all know. He's kind of taken the lore real estate. um, Surely there's some good ghost stories. I mean, everything is so old in Inverness. Like the buildings are really, really old. So basically every building you walk into, somebody's got a ghost story. Um, I don't know. I can't think of any. This is so annoying. But there's loads of ghost stories that I'm gonna think of as soon as I get off of the Zoom.
Yeah, there's the ghosts of Culloden. There's
Oh yeah.
there's a lot. There are a lot of stories, and then
Yeah.
other lore. But I mean, I guess the other reason I asked that question is, it's about 10 years since the theatrical release of Oculus. I know you're working with Mike Flanagan again. So, reflecting back on Oculus, great ghost story, a great movie. Early on in Flanagan's kind of like career before he was Mike Flanagan. How do you reflect back on that film? What's the overall legacy for it for you personally?
Oh, I loved making that film. That film is what brought me over to America in the first place. Gave me a visa, brought me over. And working with Mike was just an incredible experience. I mean, it was early on in his career, but he was already brilliant. I mean, he had been a really experienced editor before, so he wasn't starting from scratch, but like he was a joy to work with. And he's also one of my favorite people on the planet. Truly such a lovely man, and just bursting with creativity. So then I got to reunite with him on Life of Chuck, which I've seen, and it's extraordinary. He's really outdone himself. And yeah, I just feel so fortunate to be part of Flanagan's orbit. You know, he's gonna make so many more amazing things. And yeah, I'm just like incredibly lucky that I got to be involved in two of them.
I mean, he's a guy that tends to bring back a lot of people, and he's, built this repertoire of actors. And then you worked with Molly Elfman from on the Party's Just Beginning, which you of course wrote and directed, and then Next Exit, I believe. So
Yeah.
if you guys were to come together and tell a scary story, a horror movie, I don't know, what would it be? Would it be at one point I think you had mentioned to me that you would do like a woman-led Shining type of movie, but what would be the horror movie that if you guys were to get together that you would love to tell or spooky
With
story?
with Flanagan, you mean?
Yeah, like join that kind of repertoire.
Oh, okay. There might be something cooking, so I actually can't say.
Ooh, I love that. All right, well then, have you ever seen a
But
ghost?
yes, watch this space.
Have you ever had a spooky encounter, seen something in the skies, had a ghost story, anything like that?
My mum is obsessed with like paranormal stuff. So like I had all these ghost books growing up because I just sort of liked it as well. Scary things. I convinced myself of my own original stories, and there was this little like China doll that I saw at a car boot sale, and I created a whole lore around it. And then I scared the hell out of myself. And then I went back, I think the next week to see if it was still for sale because I was like, I need to own that doll now, and it was gone. There was another time when there was all this cotton wool outside of our school gates, and I told everyone that that was the hair of monks. And then monks became the scariest thing to me for a while with the hoods, and monks don't even have any hair, so I don't know where I got that from, but it scared all the other kids as well.
I love that because there are so many spooky stories that involve monks. So
It's kind of spooky image with the repetition of the hoods and stuff. So I
hoods,
guess I
yeah.
don't have any real stories, but I've been making them up for quite some time.
Well, maybe you just need to get out there and check out some more haunted locations or spooky locations.
I will crumble at the first noise.
No, you're tough.
Yes. Nope. No, I'm not. I just pretend to be tough. That's the thing.
It's funny because I travel around, I explore a lot of these cool locations, go to castles and whatnot. But New York is it's funny for all the history here. We never really talk about the spooky side of New York, but you live
Mm.
in some of these old buildings that are pre-war buildings, and I don't know, my mind sometimes wanders. I sometimes wonder about the previous residents that might be sticking around.
Someone did die in my house in LA. I know that because someone did research into the history of the house, but it was natural causes. So I don't think I'm getting haunted.
I hope not, unless they're a fan, maybe. I don't know.
But it's an old house. So I think that if you live in a very old house, it's to be expected.
Um, the with again, something I've just really admired about your career is how you've navigated doing, you'll have the Doctor Who, you have the big franchise Guardians, and you're killing it there, and Gunpowder Milkshake, really enjoyable. Jumanji, but you've always been able to navigate doing the other stuff that it seems like you want to do. So what do you kind of want to do next? Are you interested in going back to another action role and franchise role, or are you wanting to keep it kind of more smaller and intimate?
Um, I mean, I'll of course return to the franchises that I've been in because I love them so much. The reason I did them was because I loved them so much and loved playing the characters. So I'd be happy to do that. And I think if I can continue on this path of, these blockbustery type things and then some smaller things, like that's the dream to get to do both. I think if you were to ask me what I would gravitate towards, it would probably be, you know, less action and more drama or comedy and smaller stuff. So hopefully I get to do a lot more of that.
Well, as we wind down on time, I will say I just literally moments ago spoke to Reese Darby, and
Oh,
I had mentioned that I was going to talk to you, and he asked me to ask you, and I swear he said this, and this is not a shameless like attempt for news, but he wanted to know what's up with more Jumanji. Do you know anything about it? That's literally his question.
I do. I have the intel. And if he doesn't know, then I'm pretty sure I shouldn't blast this all over the internet.
So you're saying there is intel?
There's something. I'm not saying what.
No, okay. But just knowing that there is some sort of intel is interesting enough. So
Yes.
so there we go. Well, look, I know we are out of time, I believe, but just one more time, I really enjoyed Late Bloomers. I thought it was, even though it's kind of like a millennials and baby boomers story, and I'm Gen X, so I still kind of fit in the middle, but I found it really relatable about, you know, getting your life together is not as easy as it seems sometimes. And so I found it a really relatable film.
Oh, well, thank you so much.
Very
That's so nice.
sweet. Yeah. So, well, Karen, again, always great talking to you, and I hope that
Oh,
we run
thank you.
into each other in person at some point.
Yes, please. That sounds
Hey,
good.
and that was Karen Gillan, star of the new film Late Bloomers, which opens in theaters June 7th. And this has been Talking Strange, and I am Aaron Sagers. Until next time, be kind, stay spooky, and keep it weird.